Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. It is Dr. Sasheen, also known as the Bliss Doctor, and it is the Bliss Report. All things blissful, your hashtag the Daily Bliss spot to hear about life after 40, after transformation, after transition, onto the next best chapter. Hello, everybody. How is it going out there? It is Tuesday, and today we are tackling second chances. And I have to say that I'm excited about this particular program today because one of my favorite artists in the world, not top of my list, but definitely in the top 5, performed at one of my favorite places in the world a couple of nights ago live on CBS. And so that's what sparked this conversation about second chances. So whether you are catching me on the Peloton, on the go, over coffee, over tea, on your morning commute, dropping off the kids at school, wherever you're catching me, hello, good morning, welcome to the Bliss Report. It's Dr. Sasheen, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Sasheen from So You're Getting Divorced? The podcast, here to talk to you about Anchor and the ease at which you too can launch and start your own podcast. If you haven't heard about Anchor, let me just break it down for you. Here is the 411. Number 1, it's free. This is a great way to get started if you've never done podcasting, or if you're a pro and you really like the idea of using your phone or your computer to get your podcast going without all the hassle, because number 2, they will distribute it for you to places like Pocket Casts, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. That's a pretty sweet deal. Next, you can make money while you're doing your podcast with no minimum listenership, and that's pretty darn spectacular. So, follow these instructions. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Now, let's get back to the show. So welcome back. I know I'm getting into it this morning, and I'm doing that because A, I want to get into it, and B, I really want to get into it. So let's talk Adele, the new album, 30, and Second Chances. I've been a big follower of Adele her entire career. She doesn't have very many albums out, but the ones that she has put out, I have them all. I have 19, I have 25, and now I have 30. I feel like I'm missing one in there. I don't think I am, though. Anyway, I digress. So I'm a huge fan of her music. And I was able to watch the CBS special where she was interviewed by Oprah and talked about her divorce, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Her divorce, her son, her relationship, her new relationship, the making of the music, the well that she pulls from, the second chance at life that she's chosen to give herself out of the divorce that she went through. And it's really inspiring and a beautiful testament to how life gives us second chances, but we have to be willing to listen to the universe's knocking and not wait for the universe to burn our house down to take the preferred way forward. And sometimes that way forward might look from the outside in like we're exploding our life, our perfect life, but we're really not exploding our perfect life because our life isn't where we're supposed to be. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to pause and promote the Black Friday sales are coming. All of my e-guides will be on sale. 7 Steps to Financial Freedom will be on sale. The Power Moves, the big book of affirmations for finances and wealth, will be on sale. The what else was all of the ebooks will be on sale. Sorry. Oh, Big Rocks, Small Stones, and Your Happiness will be on sale. And there will be 2 new offerings coming out, which I've already started talking about. The first is Big Rocks, Small Stones, and Your Happiness, the workshop to have your workshop to happiness. That course is going to be coming out. So there's a waiting list for that if you're interested in getting it on the ground floor of this new course that I'm putting together called Big Rocks, Small Stones, and Your Happiness, the keys to achieving happiness. That's going to be, there's a waiting list for that up, and that course is going to be offered before the end of the year. So there is that. And also, this one is near and dear to my heart. There will be a couple of new ebooks on anxiety management and the magic of starting over. I love this so much, and I think that you all are going to love it too. So look for all of this on my store. If you click on the link in the show notes or in the bio, wherever you're catching this, you will see my link trees out there, and all of these things are there for you to check out, get your buying fingers ready. And yeah, I do require an email address to get on the mailing list so that I can collect. Because here's the thing, and I know people don't like to give their email address, but here's the thing. Right now, I can reach you via Facebook or Instagram, via whatever podcast platform you're listening to me on, Spotify, Anchor, whatever. But what we understand on the back end is that sometimes those things go down, and then I have no way of reaching you. And so this is a way for me to stay in touch. If you're already on my mailing list, you already know that I don't send a ton of emails. In fact, I probably send maybe one every couple of weeks. So definitely not a way that I'm going to spam you with all kinds of things. If I have something to offer you, I tell it to you right here. And I tell it to you every day because I'm on here all the time, but I don't send a ton of emails. So anyway, get your free 10 Things to Get Happy Now guide is out there for you for free, and 50 Ideas for Side Hustles is out there also for free. Pick those up, get yourself cracking on your second act of life, and make yourself the happiest that you have ever been. Okay, so let's talk about Adele and the concept of moving on and breaking up with past trauma and giving yourself permission to take your second chances when you can actually use them to your advantage, and not when you feel like life has just totally passed you completely by. And though yes, you might get that second chance, but you don't feel like you have enough of life to really appreciate them. Because one of the things when she was talking to Oprah that I really resonated with was this idea, sorry, I'm a little scrunched there, sorry, was this idea that she got a divorce from her husband, and from the outside looking in, they looked happy, perfect little nuclear family. Everything's going great. Everything's going fantastic. And she said, I could have just kept doing that, but I was not happy. The marriage was not a happy one. And she had to make the decision about whether or not to, in essence, from the outside looking in, blow up her happy home, and make that decision with enough understanding that it was going to severely impact the life of her son. They have one child together. And that people were going to ask a lot of hard questions. You know, she's a celebrity. Her life and her divorce are in the spotlight. Her choices are in the spotlight. And as much as we like to say we give celebrities, give them their privacy, we don't actually care. We do care. Okay, let's not pretend like we don't care. We do care. We care about the lives of celebrity. That's what makes them celebrity. Yes, we love the music, but we also love their life. Now, I'm one of those people who don't tend to follow personal lives of celebrities too much, but I'd be lying if I didn't say at least I'm up to speed on what the world is talking about when it comes to my favorite celebrities. So she knew that there was going to be talk, but she took an opportunity to break the bonds of past trauma when she chose to divorce her ex-husband. Because Oprah asked her a great question, which was, what was the gap you were trying to fill with the marriage? And daggone it, ladies, let's get real, because a lot of marriages are attempts to heal a hole left from past trauma, from childhood trauma. A lot of marriage is about healing the past trauma of other relationships, usually ones that stem from the relationships with our parents, toxic parenting, toxic childhoods. And so many a marriage suffers under the weight of needing to fix that bond and break that bond and fix it and make it whole. And a lot of marriages just can't. They simply just can't. One, because no one wants to acknowledge that they might have gotten married because they needed to heal a past hurt and not because they were madly in love with the person that they're with. Nobody wants to admit that. And number two, even if you admit that, you certainly don't want to say that you're still dealing with that past trauma bond to the point where you can't really have a healthy and whole relationship. And so a lot of relationships get stuffed full of past trauma and then just limp along with the hopes that no one will really notice that we're falling apart. This is why so many relationships break up after the kids leave, because the wounds that brought people together don't get healed in marriage, and they don't tend to get worked out. We gloss over, we add a lot of things over the top of those layers with a lot of layers. And then as time wears on and the layers kind of start to disappear, kids leave, people retire, all of a sudden people are like, they've been married for 30 years. I can't believe she filed for divorce. You have no idea how long the woman wanted to file for divorce. No clue. And decided that she was going to take her second shot at getting the life that she really wants and not the one that she may have settled for. This happens with men too. I'm not saying that it doesn't. I'm just talking to my women out there today because that's who I am and that's who I'm talking to. But it happens on both sides, on all sides, I guess I should say, on all sides. And so breaking the trauma bond of the past is very difficult. And listening to her I think it aired a couple nights ago. I just got a chance to see it last night because I was a little busy when it aired on CBS. But listening to her talk about going through the process of figuring out what it really meant to be her, what she was looking for, and acknowledging that she was trying to fill that hole left by her relationship with her father. How many women got married because they were trying to replace a relationship with a father that was either not there physically, mentally, or emotionally, and the hopes that the husband would be there and do things that the father simply wasn't willing or wasn't capable of doing. A lot of relationships are like that. Same on the other side. A lot of men marry their mothers in the hopes that the woman that they marry will heal the relationship with their mother that they themselves cannot heal. And when we think about the bonds of trauma that people carry with them, so like a pretty beautiful pair of big luggage, we carry them around with us. When someone sets it down and says, hello, I think I'm going to stop carrying this with me now. I'm going to set it down and I'm going to do the work to unpack it so that I can leave it behind. People get really up in their feelings about it, right? They get really annoyed when people are unwilling to play the trauma bond game anymore. So as I was watching her speak to Oprah, I was realizing that that's a lot of the work that I did in my own therapy when I was getting divorced. I highly recommend therapy. I don't think I've said it enough this week. I'm sure I haven't. But if you have come through anything, you want to get help from a therapist. You want to get a licensed therapist who has training in cognitive therapies and behavioral therapies and modalities to help you break some of the chains that have held you down and allowed you to make similar decisions repeatedly throughout life that keep reinforcing a trauma bond, as opposed to breaking and putting to bed a trauma bond. And until you do that, we keep repeating the same pattern, and we don't really get a second chance because we haven't really recovered from the first chance, which was our family of origin. Now, I don't put all things on parents, right? I get it. Sometimes you do the best that you can for your kids, and you hope that that's enough to keep them from growing up into an adult who does terrible things in the world. You know, some of the issues that adults have are because they're making bad adulting decisions. But a lot of the wounding that comes from childhood carries well into adulthood for years and years and years. And we can't ignore that. And so by healing trauma bonds, we take the first chance that we get, the first chance that we got at life, which was into our families. And if we can heal those, then we start to realize that maybe there's a second chance at life out there. And for a lot of us, the second chance at life came when we had kids. And we realized, holy cow, I don't want to pass on my trauma bonds to my kid. I want my kid to not have this. I want them to have less of this and more of the non-traumatic bonding experiences, so that when they grow up and they move forward into their relationships, they're going from a space of whole and healed and not a place from broken. I like to call it begging and broken, but a place of brokenness. And so what does your second chance look like? Especially when you're over the age of 40 and you're like, but what am I supposed to do? Like, I wanted to be married and now I'm not married, or now I'm not married and I don't know if I ever want to get married, or, I never have gotten married. And I think it's because I don't really trust marriage because I came from a bad place. Number one, you get the necessary therapy to help you make sense of who you are and where you're going. And you figure out what it means to be you in your skin. And the magic of starting over starts to unfold for you when you realize that, okay, a second chance is exactly that. Life presents them to us, and we have to decide whether or not we're willing to grab a hold of it. And without judgment, like, I applaud people who can look at their lives and go, okay, I am making people miserable with my inability to get over the past. I am making people miserable. And since I am making people miserable, so I'm going to go do something about that. And sometimes that means that you come out of a relationship, even one that on the surface looks like it's working out really, really well, it's not. And you come out of it and go, I can't do this to you anymore, and I can't do it to myself. So I'm going to go and I'm going to heal myself, and then we'll see what happens. Because one of the beautiful things that she talked about yesterday was how She and her ex-husband are parents to their child. They live across the street from each other, y'all. I mean, seriously, they have conversations about the life and rearing of their child because they are able to be friends. Because her loneliness and her second chance, yes, predicated the end of that relationship, but it didn't break the bonds of the friendship because they were friends. They were friends for a very long time. And I think it's really interesting and important for us as people on this side of 40 who are looking at life as through the glasses of this is my second chance and I'm going to fly. It's really important to take the time to acknowledge that up until this point, I may have made some decisions that have not been beneficial, not just for myself, but for other people. I acknowledge that, but I will not let that hold me down. I'm going to break the bonds of trauma by not reliving past decisions that I cannot control anymore. I can acknowledge that I may not always have been perfect, and I can get the help to make sure that I don't take the trauma into the future, and then I can let it go. And I can go forward into the next best chapter of my life feeling like I got this. Like I get this opportunity. I get to do this again. I get to have another relationship. I get to start a family if I want one. I get to open a business. I get to go back to school. I get to travel the world. I get to write great music and perform at the Getty Center in Los Angeles, which is where she was performing. It was so beautiful. It was fantastic, and it was sweeping, and it was just a magnificent performance. I get to whatever it is that you get to do because you've made peace with breaking the trauma bonds and you have embraced your second chance. You get to embrace it, whether that's, selling everything and deciding to go cross country in your RV, or whether that's deciding that, I really couldn't care less about a penthouse overlooking Central Park in New York. What I really want is a sprawling farm out in Colorado where I can just look at the Rocky Mountains all day long. Whatever you wanted and whatever the thing that you have chosen to be about in your second act of life, breaking the trauma bonds and getting the healing done makes that all possible. And recognizing that sometimes that means that you're going to let go of things that have been a crutch for you and that have let you hold on to them because they've kept you safe and warm. And realizing that the world is not a cold place. That's one of the things about being the Bliss Doctor and having the Bliss Report, is understanding that the world isn't a cold and cruel place. The world will open up to you if you want it to open up to you. But if you want it to bring you more trauma, it will for sure bring you more trauma. No doubt about that. But it will also bring you moments of absolute bliss and joy. And it really does depend on how you choose to engage with life. And so as you're thinking about your second chance today, and you are ready to think about what that might look like, hopefully you do think about, if you have never done therapy, I highly recommend it. Y'all, I highly recommend getting a massage. People who have never gotten a massage are like, I don't think I could do that. No, trust me. Once you've had one and you've had a good one, you'll never not want another one. But you want to think about, how can I bring a closure to the trauma bonds that have impacted and probably led my life and my relationships for so long? It's time to think about myself and to put those things to bed and give myself permission to have the best second act possible. The best possible way that I can have the best second act of my life is by fixing and healing the bonds of trauma that I have carried forward with me up to this point. If you haven't watched that CBS special, I highly recommend it. She's got as always, she has a beautiful voice. She's a beautiful spirit and a beautiful soul. And she makes you feel good. And I, at this point in my life, in my second act, I am all about things that make me feel good. And I happen to be a lover of music and of the arts. And I love anything that feels sweeping and majestic and fantastic. So I was in my element. Hopefully you have found something in this short, brief message today, because it is going to be short and brief. In this short, brief message today that really resonates and serves you well, because it's so important as we are coasting towards the next 30 years. If you're 40, you got at least 35, probably, possibly. I mean, let's be real. At this point, you're looking at another 40 years on the planet. Period. If you're over 40, if you're 40 plus, you got 40 years on the planet. If you're 50 plus, you got at least another 30 years on the planet, if not more. So let's be really real. By choosing to live a second act that benefits you and that breaks bonds of trauma and heals the past. By making that decision, the magic of starting over becomes just that, a magical second act of life. Because you stop worrying about what others may think about your second act, and you start living it full out, full chest wide open, throat open, telling the world, like, here's what I'm going to do. Love it or hate it, I'm leaving the past behind. And that's what I feel like she did in that beautiful concert. And that's what I hope that you do on this beautiful day. So that's it. Like I said, this was going to be short and sweet because I was really excited to be able to just talk about it. And I don't want to belabor the point because I think that she makes it in her interview and it's made in many different places. But mostly I want you to think today, how am I going to break the trauma bonds and allow them to heal so that I don't pass them on to anybody else? I don't use them to hurt myself anymore. I don't use them to hurt other people anymore. And I go into my next best chapter with all of the tools and ammunition that I need to make it the best chapter yet. This has been Dr. Sasheen. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please leave a rating, a review, and a comment. Get on the waiting list for the workshop, Big Rocks, Small Stones, and Your Happiness, Working Your Way to Happiness. I do think it will change your life when you begin to get your priorities straight, and healing your trauma should be one of those priorities. As always, it is my pleasure to talk to you, and I will see you all on Thursday. Have a good one. Bye now.